So I was 15 when I first fell in love with radio. I used to listen religiously to the Hot 30 with Kyle and Jackie O, as many people did my age at the time. Used to tape it and listen back to what Kyle said and listen to how Jackie laughed. And it's quite funny because I now work with the guys. And I grew up in Canberra, so there was actually a local show there with a DJ called Nige, and I used to harass him every single night and say, put me on the air, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that, I want to introduce a song. And then just became really good mates with him, and he told me exactly how to get into the industry, so I was just persistent, got my foot in the door, and now, how old am I? So now 12 years later, I'm here, still. In radio when it comes to job opportunities, you need to be prepared to move around. So grew up in Canberra, then I moved to Melbourne for 12 months, then I moved back to Canberra, then I moved to Coombe, then I moved to Jindabyne, Perth, eventually landing in Sydney. So, there are plenty of opportunities, but you do need to be prepared to move around, because you do start off in those smaller markets, as we call them, to get your on-air wings up, just so you get used to talking behind a microphone. No one's going to come in here having never spoken on air and get a gig at Today FM, unless you're absolutely brilliant. So my first job was actually volunteering at the radio station in Canberra. So I was just helping out at the station and answering phones. They then got me out in the promotional vehicles, the Black Thunders. So you're driving around Canberra, people chasing you, trying to get free stuff, which was a loaf of bread and cans of Coke, but high in demand, which I thought was absolutely amazing, because it really gave me exposure to see how radio comes together behind the scenes, as well as being out on the streets and a face of the radio station. So then my first actual on-air gig, full-time, was when I just turned 19, and it was in Coombe at a place called 2XL. It was this AM radio station. I was there for 3 months, and Coombe, it's down in the Snowy Mountains, it's like -7. I remember my first day on the job, I had to sit outside and scrape ice off my car because it was like -8, and I thought, what the heck have I got myself into? But it was the best gig ever, because the boss of the radio station actually owned the ski resorts down, or some of the ski resorts, the airport, the cinema. So the perks of it were brilliant, and also everyone who was in that station wasn't from Coombe, so we were a really tight-knit family. We used to have dinners together and hang out at work, so it was really cool. Nice little introduction to this world. There's so many amazing things about radio. The number one thing is it doesn't feel like a job. I'm very, very lucky. For the past 12 years I've been coming into work and it doesn't feel like work, and I still wake up in the morning and I've got to pinch myself and realise, holy crap, I'm in the biggest radio station in Australia. Wow, it is my dream job. I remember since day one saying to my parents, I want to work at Today FM, I want to be with Kyle and Jackie O, and now I'm here, and like they know my name, which still just... So, that's one of the best things. And also the people that I get to meet, like yourself. I get thousands of calls every single day where people will call up and tell me their story, and I just feel so honoured that people want to call up and say hello and just share their stories, and, giving away pink tickets, or I love to make people happy, so it's a great thing to do. I don't think there is a bad thing about radio. I suppose the long hours, they can get to you. I work on average, I got in this morning at 8, sometimes I get in at 7:30, depends what time my alarm goes off and what time I get out of bed. And I'll be here on average till about 6:30, so there are long hours. Some of our promotional girls will work, 18-hour days, getting up at 2 a.m. to set up for stuff. So that's probably the worst thing, but the payoff is when we do stuff like that, what happens at those events, so what happens next is always worth getting up at 2 a.m. So in Canberra, they made me work unpaid for 14 hours for 4 weeks. And this was like getting up and starting at 8 and finishing at 10 at night. So they were long, long days. And they said at the end, they're like, we didn't think you'd survive, but you're still here, like you're going to be huge kind of thing. So you need to be committed with those long hours if you want to work in radio. But I'm not complaining, because it's not like we're here running on our feet. Like it's a cruisy job, but it's in your face. I remember the big boss in Canberra, when I first was starting out, said to me, if you want to work in radio, you need to be persistent, be tapping on people's doors saying, hey, this is an air check, I want to come in and do this, this and this. Because that way you're going to be top of mind to a boss, a content director, and then if something comes up, they'll say, oh, I've got Joe Blogs, they've been emailing me, let's get them in. So if you're top of mind of a boss, then they're going to definitely think of you. Whereas if you're just, quiet, sitting there in the corner and not getting yourself out there, then they're never going to hear of you. So get yourself out there, send out your ed checks, send them to me. I'll give you feedback. The number one experience when it comes to getting a gig in radio is having that practical experience. You can talk underwater, but you need to be able to get behind one of these things and be able to actually keep a station on the air. So it's that hands-on practical experience that we really do look at. We recently got a whole bunch of new people, and we had people applying from all different jobs in the world. They thought, hey, I've got a YouTube channel, so then I could be a radio DJ. It's really important that you know how radio works to get a gig in this industry. So, getting behind a panel at a voluntary station and stuff like that's really good. I know people in various places in Australia which have come from community radio. It's one of those grounding places. You might not start straight at Today FM, but actually there was a guy I went to uni with. He did community radio, and he then landed a full-time gig in Geelong from that community radio. So there is definitely an opportunity. So get into a community radio station. It's the best way to start to learn.